Good morning, Marty.
Hey, Leah, we're here. It's our podcast. It's finally
I
here.
know. It's about time. Introducing Around the Block with Leah Larson and Marty Greenlee. Are you excited or what?
Oh my gosh! I mean, it's been what, a few months, maybe like 6 months. We've been talking about this, maybe even more.
Yeah,
Yeah, this
I
is
think since
exciting.
January. This is
I guess
exciting.
I guess people should know who we are. I mean, because like we have a podcast, but nobody knows who we are. I know a lot of people know who we are, but do they really know who we are?
Nope, I don't think they do. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself. Leah Larson. I'm a Senior Director of Strategic Growth and Partnerships here at Neighborly Software, a former housing and community development practitioner, and a former roller derby slinger.
We're gonna have to come back to that one. Well, I'm Marty Greenlee. I am a senior account director in sales here at Neighborly Software, but I'm a father of 5 kids and a former collegiate football kicker. I won the national championship, and there's a longer story on that. But yeah, I'm excited to be here. And share this podcast with you, but also all of the housing and community development industry. Like, we know a lot of people, Leah. We've been around so many conferences, and so excited to get to share this conversation with you, but then also with some amazing speakers that are coming up in the future podcasts.
I'm really excited too, Marty. I think this is
Yeah.
going to be a great forum for a lot of people nationwide on so many awesome topics, and also for people to get to know us a little bit better as well. Talking about roller derby, most people don't even know I played derby in Los Angeles, California, and that was a pretty exciting time in my life. And it kind of wraps into housing and community development too. So let's talk a little bit about our early careers.
Yeah, let's start with you, because I mean the roller derby sounds really interesting.
Yeah. I never thought that my 17-year-old self, when I got to learn Davis-Bacon payroll for working for a general contractor, would ever follow me anywhere in my entire career. And it's been kind of an interesting story of, serving socially disadvantaged populations and working in a homeless shelter here in Boise, Idaho, getting to see that side of things, working in anger management and domestic violence and what that looks like, and then following into local government and working in housing community development, which is what led me to Neighborly Software, to be able to talk to people across the United States on some of their program types.
Yeah. The word Davis-Bacon just throws me off sometimes. I just was, God, we'll probably have a session just on Davis-Bacon someday.
Yeah, we could.
But my eyes are rolling when I hear that word sometimes. Yeah, I guess a little bit about me. I was raised in a small rural town with a single mom who was a closet lesbian, honestly, to be very transparent. And she didn't come out until after I was in college, and we lived from house to house. We moved in with an older lady at one point just to try to save money, and then eventually my mom's cousin rented out his little small house behind his business by the railroad tracks, and it was tough living. It was tough living. And, I think I always wanted to be a public servant. I always wanted to give back. I always wanted to, work in local government.
Yeah.
And got the chance, went to college and got a land use planning, environmental science degree. And wanted to be an environmentalist, honestly, at first, and then realized that community development was where I needed to be in housing. So, got into that and managing grants and found my way. Well, actually, honestly, I got burnt out managing all of the grants and all the reporting and all the compliance. And after 15 years working in local government, I decided to make a shift and found my way into software. And now I get to help so many other cities and counties manage these programs more efficiently through, the software, the company that we work for. And it's super exciting. So yeah, from as a young kid all the way into now, I'm just looking back at it's all just been building to do what I'm doing today. So I'm excited to be doing what I do. I love my job.
Yeah. No, thanks for sharing that story. A couple weeks ago, I was at the Women's Affordable Housing Summit in San Diego, and I had someone for the first time ask me why I care about housing community development so much. And, it takes me back to a story that most people don't even know. Like, I started my life in public housing in Atwater, California, very rural town, a lot of almond farmers. And that was kind of an interesting start in life of not knowing like why we were in public housing and what that meant. Really didn't understand it until I got older. And when I was 8 years old, my mom finally got us out of public housing and we moved into a little house and still in the same town, Atwater, California. And we had a landlord that would cut corners. Do you remember those wall furnaces back in the day
Oh yeah.
that would heat your house? It was like super old. They were like 6 feet tall. We had a wall furnace that was right next to my room. And when we moved into that house, I was constantly sick, like throwing up every single day. My mom would get angry because she'd miss work. I'd miss school. And then my dad would pick me up on the weekends and I'd be fine. Super happy, nothing wrong. Well, it wasn't until about 3 months later, still super sick. We had this rocker chick across the street. I thought she was the coolest lady in the world. Like total like White Snake, kind of Led Zeppelin, like had the whole 80s hair and everything, wore leg warmers. Well, she had a 5-year-old kid and she had drove a convertible Mustang. She was warming it up. Her kid got in the car and put it in reverse, backed right into our house. And the landlord couldn't afford to fix it. And we had this big 10-foot wide hole right in the middle of winter. That hole saved my life. What we didn't realize is I was getting carbon monoxide poisoning every day from the wall furnace. That led to permanent damage to my lungs. And I have asthma. And so anytime somebody talks about like not caring about a carbon monoxide monitor, I'm like, put the damn thing in your house. It could save somebody's life, literally. And so when you talk about housing and stability, those are some of the moments of why I care so much. And I also lost my aunt to homelessness and drug addiction in Seattle. And I didn't know what that meant. And when I was younger, when I lost her, and she died on my birthday. So every year when I have my birthday celebration, I think of my aunt. And when we talk about health and housing, the stability that housing brings, like if that kid hadn't have crashed that car into our house and my mom couldn't afford to fix it and neither could the landlord, I'd probably be dead. So when we talk about housing and why I'm so passionate, that's one of the reasons I show up. And so talking about those stories, I think, and being vulnerable is super important. And Around the Block is going to give that forum for a lot of people across the country to share why they care so much about all of these different programs that federal programs put out. And so that's just a sneak peek of, where I started my life and my journey and why I care so much.
Yeah, that's awesome, Leah. That's great perspective. And yeah, I think, I just had a conversation with some folks about lead-based paint, and I guess same thing, and these kids are being, crawling around the floors and, and putting their fingers in their mouth and being around all that dust. And, certainly a program that is, that we work with some of our neighbors. I mean, housing, the health of housing, access to housing, accessible housing, certainly is important across the country. I guess we should probably discuss, what's, what the podcast, why the podcast exists. I think we talked a little bit about that. Who are the voices that aren't in the room?
I think Around the Block is really going to give a forum for so many different topics, not just housing, right? We've got Department of Energy stuff. We've got different program types. We've got things like Rochelle Henderson in Harris County is so passionate about talking about 3D housing printing. What is it? What are we talking about? What's the wave of the future for so many different things? I think, when we created Around the Block, it really was for thought leadership around the United States of America and every different type. I want the mayor of Little Rock, Arkansas on this podcast to talk about what it's like to be a mayor in a community that cares so deeply about housing and community development. Yeah. Practitioners, governors, whoever wants a forum and a space to talk about things of thought leadership, I think Around the Block is going to give them that space to be able to talk about a lot of different topics. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to, I live in Portland, Oregon. So, homelessness is such a big ticket item. And, we haven't done a great job out here with it, with some of the funding. I think there's been some improvements here and there, just driving around town.
Yep.
But I'm excited to include a good friend of mine, Jim Matthew from Milwaukee County, Wisconsin. He's just doing some amazing things in homelessness in Milwaukee County. So excited to bring him on, and obviously some others that we know across the industry.
Oh yeah.
A lot of our good friends, a lot of people that have been in the industry for many, many years, doing some very creative things. So excited to bring a bunch of folks in here to share their perspective, because we're all running similar programs across the country,
Yeah.
but everybody's running them just a smidge different, or tuning them a little differently, where based on their location, based on the funding that they have, based on some of the geography that they're in, things like that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of struggles across the United States with turnover in this industry.
Oh,
There
yeah.
isn't really education tracks at the university level to really get into some of these program types to really be able to deliver and drive home. I'm known as the cone of silence queen nationwide, where we have real conversations where people have a space to just share their struggles and all of the different barriers in government. You've got so much red tape. It's insane. You trigger one penny of federal funding, and there's a million things that go with it. And there are so many people that don't understand it's not monopoly money. You can't just do whatever you want with it, right? And there's a lot of different things I think that we can share on this podcast and also have some fun. Like,
Yeah.
we're not stiff, Marty. We need you doing the worm on the podcast again, right?
Okay. Well, yeah. For those that don't know, I'm a champion centipede worm guy on the dance floor. So until that one fate night in Washington D.C. where I broke my nose, so the worm or centipede, whatever you want to call it, is retired for this 50-year-old. So
Yeah. No, I think people are going to have a great time on this podcast. We can't wait to have everybody on here to be able to discuss the topics that are meaningful and to people that are going to be on this podcast. And
yeah,
it's going to be great co-hosting with you, Marty.
likewise.
you know, being able to share stories along the way. And what's up with the banana shirt today?
Well, I mean, come on. I wanted to share. I wanted to wear a fun shirt today because I wear fun shirts. I love bananas, and so I thought, well, hey, I'm highlighting myself. I'm introducing myself to the around the block. It's kind of like when you move into a new neighborhood, which I just recently did, and you're going up to meet people, and you have to introduce
Yeah.
yourself a little bit. So I love bananas, and when I go to when I order a milkshake, it's always banana. If it's oatmeal, I always put bananas in my oatmeal. It's just bananas everywhere. I love bananas, and maybe I'm just part monkey. I don't know. But I do love a good banana.
I miss your truffle shuffle shirt. That one's a
I'm
hoot.
sure that one will show up at some point.
Yeah, always brings some
Yeah.
fun to the flavor to
Goonies.
it.
Shout out to the Goonies in Astoria, Oregon. Yeah.
Oh my
Um,
goodness. Anything else you want to share?
well, I was thinking about the name we chose, Around the Block.
Yeah.
And, for me, growing up in this small rural town, being a single family, a single mother, kind of raised child, I think Around the Block for me, just um, has a lot of meaning in regards to, what was Hillary Clinton's thing? Was it Hillary Clinton that said, you're raised by a neighborhood? What was it? The thing she said?
I have no idea.
Oh, darn it.
I don't watch
God.
television, so I'm the worst
We'll,
person to even try to
we'll,
ask anything.
we'll probably have to cut this out. Who knows? But um, anyway, so I was just raised by everybody in the community. I mean, I went from house to house to house, rode my bike, and this one night was feeding me because my mom was getting home late from work, or just going from house to house to house, and it was really just that around the block neighborhood kind of
Yeah.
perspective of all different walks of life, and I think this Around the Block podcast is we're just going to touch on all these different things, because community development, housing, it just involves so much, about community, people's perspectives on life and kind of how things should be run. And so I'm looking forward to going door to door to all of our connections across the country and learning. So Yeah.
Around the block really resonated for me too on multiple levels. You have heard many stories about my neighborhood and where I live here locally. And if I want to go around the block, I've got to cross the street 5 different times because we don't have connected sidewalks in our neighborhood.
Mm,
And, I watch children in wheelchairs that don't have connectivity to even be able to get to school. And I had a
yeah.
similar story my senior year in high school where I was couch surfing. If it wasn't for
Mhm.
Sherry Campbell and Atwater High, I probably would have starved to death. She fed me, clothed me, taught me how to iron my clothes. And so, having that around the block kind of feeling, I think it resonated with me really well. And it was super cool to also kick that out to our team to help us come up with a podcast name.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, Geez. I guess a closing kind of question for each of us, what's one thing you hope this podcast changes? Maybe it could be small, it could be big. What do you see as the change maker of this podcast?
I think if there's one small thing this podcast can do is give people a safe space to share their stories, what they're passionate about. And also remember that when we share our stories and we talk, that could impact one human being. That's worth it right there. And I think that that's the small thing for me. If there's one thing this podcast can do for people.
Yeah, I think for me, there's people working in local government right now that are a lot of them are brand new. We had a huge mass exodus during COVID of people that had worked in this industry for 30 plus years, and now we've got a new wave of younger folks coming in, and they're walking into, in a lot of cases, to a lot of red tape and things that they're not used to. And I think for me, just giving them a potentially, a place to come listen, to hear how other people are dealing with these things, and um, like you said, a safe place, but maybe even some resources for them to go to,
Yeah.
and to ask questions. You and I go to a lot of conferences that are around the country that are a great way to connect with like-minded folks that are in the industry, and I'm sure we'll highlight some of those conferences that we go to for folks. And yeah, I just want to be a resource for somebody that's
Sure.
feeling burnout in the industry, and helping them with some resources, and then honestly, just to say it's okay to be frustrated with this type of work, because it can be frustrating, especially with government threatening to cancel your funds, and are you going to be able to keep your job, as things just trying to solve other people's problems in the community, by the funding that you have available to you to share. So I'm looking forward to get involving all of our friends and relationships and people that we know across the country, to help those people in local government that are new and maybe feeling a little stressed and overwhelmed.
Yeah. No, and I think, folks, you can expect that around the block is not going to be stiff. It's going to be transparent. It's going to be about
Mhm.
what you want to talk about, and we're going to have a good time.
Yeah. Well, shoot. I don't know. Should we
Is
give
that
a
a
high
wrap?
five to each other? That's a
Don't.
wrap. We're,
Uh,
we're, oop, we definitely have to dive deeper into this roller derby thing. We got to hear more about that at some point.
oh yeah, I got so many stories.
Roller derby.
I'll
Wow.
pace myself.